The command deck of the Galactic Survey Station buzzed with quiet activity. Screens displayed data from 1,000 worlds. Alien scouts from dozens of species moved between terminals, checking readings and filing reports. Commander Vex Thor stood at the central console. His 4 eyes scanned the incoming requests. The insectoid officer had served the Galactic Council for 30 cycles. He had seen many strange things in his career, but nothing prepared him for the request that appeared on his screen. Another human application. Vex Thor clicked his mandibles in annoyance. His assistant, a small feathered being named Pip, looked up from her station. "For which assignment, Commander?" Bhatti 180. Vex Thor's antennae twitched. "The death world in the outer rim." Pip's feathers ruffled with concern. "Sir, we have lost 3 scout teams on that planet already. The last team never even made it past the first valley." "I am aware," Vex Thor replied. He pulled up the application file. "This human claims he can complete the full planetary survey alone." A ripple of clicking laughter spread through the nearby scouts. A tall, gray-skinned Quellan turned from his terminal. "A human? On Bhatti 180? That mudball has gravity 3 times standard. The atmosphere is so thick you can barely see 50 meters ahead. And the native predators—" He shuddered, his skin shifting to a pale yellow color. Vex Thor read through the application again. The human's name was simple. No family designation, no clan marks, just a first name and a service number. The credentials were impressive, though. Survival training on 7 different world types, combat certification, wilderness navigation expert, engineering skills, medical knowledge. "He has experience," Vex Thor admitted. "But Bhatti 180 requires more than experience. It requires—" "Insanity," Pip finished. "No offense, Commander, but only a mad being would volunteer for that assignment." The commander could not disagree. Bhatti 180 had earned its reputation. The planet sat in a system with 2 suns. One sun was old and red. The other was young and white. The combination created weather patterns that changed by the hour. Temperature swings of 40 degrees were common, rain that fell like stones, wind that could strip flesh from bone. But the weather was not the worst part. Bhatti 180 had evolved life in harsh conditions. Everything on the planet was tough, strong, aggressive. The plant life had thorns that could pierce standard body armor. The insects were the size of small vehicles. The predators were nightmares given flesh. The last scout team had been Quellan, highly trained, well-equipped. They had lasted 4 days before activating their emergency beacon. By the time the rescue ship arrived, only 2 of the 5 team members were still alive. Both had been found inside their fortified camp. The walls showed signs of attack from something large, something determined. Vex Thor pulled up the planetary data again. Bhatti 180 was valuable. Mineral scans showed rare elements in abundance. The Galactic Council needed those resources, but they also needed accurate surveys, proper documentation. Someone had to map the terrain, identify the dangers, find safe zones for future mining operations. "Should I reject the application, Commander?" Pip asked. Vex Thor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. He looked at the human's file again. The species was relatively new to galactic society. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 cycles ago. They came from a planet called Earth, a world with its own challenges. He pulled up the Earth data file. Standard gravity, breathable atmosphere. But the file also noted something interesting. Earth had multiple climate zones, extreme temperature variations, natural disasters, predators, disease. Humans had evolved in competition with all of it. "Earth is classified as a Class 7 world," Vex Thor noted. "Moderately dangerous." "Bhatti 180 is Class 12, sir," Pip reminded him. "Maximum danger rating." Vex Thor knew this, but something about the application intrigued him. Humans were known for certain traits. They were stubborn, adaptable. Some said they were too bold for their own good. but they had survived their hostile homeworld and spread to several colony planets. That took something special. Set up an interview, Vextor decided. I want to speak with this human before I reject his application. Pip's feathers fluffed in surprise. You are considering approving this, Commander? I am considering nothing yet, Vextor said firmly, but we have a mandate from the Council. Bhatti 180 must be surveyed. We have tried sending teams. We have tried sending our best scouts. All have failed. Perhaps, he paused, perhaps we need to try something different. Something crazy, you mean, Pip muttered. Crazy enough to work, Vextor corrected. Schedule the interview for tomorrow. Standard time. And Pip, pull up every file we have on human physical capabilities. I want to know exactly what this species can do. Pip nodded and returned to her station. Vextor looked at the human's application one more time. The profile picture showed a male human. Dark skin, dark eyes, a calm expression. Nothing special, nothing that screamed survivor, but appearances could be deceiving. The commander closed the file and turned his attention to other matters. But his mind kept returning to Bhatti 180 and to the human who volunteered to face it alone. By evening, Pip had compiled a report on human capabilities. Vextor read it in his quarters. The data was fascinating. Humans were endurance hunters. On their homeworld, they had chased prey for hours until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Human bodies could regulate temperature through a process called sweating. They could consume a wide variety of foods. They healed quickly from injuries. They could go days without sleep if needed. But the most interesting part was their psychology. Humans had something called a stress response. When facing danger, their bodies flooded with chemicals that increased strength, speed, and pain tolerance. They could push past normal limits, do things that should be impossible. Vextor clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. On Bhatti 180, those traits might make a difference, or they might just mean the human would die more slowly than the others. The commander set the report aside and prepared for sleep. Tomorrow, he would meet this human. Tomorrow, he would decide if the Galactic Council's need for survey data was worth the life of another scout. Outside his window, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere among them, Bhatti 180 waited, a world of stone and storm, a world that had broken every team sent to explore it, a world that might have finally met its match. The interview room was standard, white walls, a long table, chairs designed to accommodate various body types. Commander Vextor arrived early. Pip followed with her datapad, ready to take notes. They did not wait long. The door opened and the human entered. He was bigger than Vextor expected. Most humans stood around 1.8 meters tall, according to the files. This one was taller, perhaps 2 meters. His shoulders were broad. His arms showed clear muscle definition under his simple gray uniform. But what struck Vextor most was how the human moved. There was no wasted motion. Each step was deliberate, balanced. The human walked like a predator, confident but cautious, always aware of his surroundings. Commander Vextor? The human's voice was deep but calm. I am here for the interview regarding Bhatti 180. Vextor gestured to a chair. Please sit. I am Commander Vextor. This is my assistant, Pip. The human nodded politely to both of them and sat down. He folded his hands on the table. His dark eyes met Vextor's compound eyes without fear or aggression. Just patient, waiting. I have read your application, Vextor began. Your credentials are impressive, but I must ask why you volunteered for this assignment. Surely you know the dangers of Bhatti 180? I know the classification, sir, the human replied. Class 12, Death World. High gravity, dense atmosphere, aggressive native life, extreme weather patterns. 3 failed survey attempts with multiple casualties. And yet you wish to go there, alone. Vextor's mandibles clicked. Why? The human was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because someone needs to complete the survey. The council needs those resources. and I believe I can do what the other teams could not. Confidence or arrogance? Pip asked from her station. The human turned to look at her. A slight smile touched his lips. Both, maybe, but mostly preparation. I have studied every report from the failed missions. I know where they went wrong. Vexthor leaned forward. Enlighten us. The first team treated it like a standard survey, the human said. They set up a base camp in a river valley, good water source, open ground for their equipment. But river valleys channel wind and water. During the storm season, flash floods are common. They were swept away on day 3. Pip checked her notes. That is accurate. The second team tried the highlands, the human continued. Better visibility, easier to defend, but they did not account for the temperature drops at night. The equipment froze. Half the team developed hypothermia. They had to evacuate. Also correct, Vexthor confirmed. And the third team? The human's expression grew serious. The third team made it further than the others. They chose a cave system for shelter, natural protection from weather and predators. But caves on Bhatti 180 are not empty. Something lived in those caves, something big. The team was trapped inside with no escape route. The room fell silent. Pip's feathers were flat against her body. Vexthor remembered reading that report. The rescue team had found remains. Not much else. You have analyzed their mistakes, Vexthor said. What would you do differently? I would not establish a permanent base, the human replied immediately. Staying in one place makes you a target. It gives the environment time to test your defenses. I would stay mobile, move every 2 or 3 days, never sleep in the same location twice. That requires carrying all your equipment, Pip pointed out, in 3 times standard gravity. Yes, the human nodded, which is why I have been training under increased gravity for the past 4 months. My home station has adjustable gravity generators. I have been living and working at triple standard for 16 hours a day. Vexthor was surprised. That must be extremely uncomfortable. It is, the human agreed, but it is temporary discomfort. Better to adapt now than struggle on Bhatti 180. What about the predators? Vexthor asked. The native life is extremely aggressive. Aggression can be managed, the human said. Most predators are territorial. They attack threats to their territory or potential prey. If I move through their territory quickly and quietly, if I do not challenge them, many will let me pass. For the ones that will not, he paused. I have trained in combat. I understand how to fight efficiently, and I know when to run. Running may not be an option, Pip said nervously. The creatures on Bhatti 180 are very fast. Then I will not let them get close enough to chase me, the human replied. Awareness, distance, preparation. These are my primary defenses. Vexthor studied the human carefully. The words were confident but not boastful. There was logic behind each statement. Planning. This was not some young scout seeking glory. This was someone who had thought through every aspect of the mission. The survey will take an estimated 60 days, Vexthor said. 60 days alone on one of the most hostile worlds in known space. 60 days with no support, no backup. If something goes wrong, rescue may not reach you in time. I understand, sir. You could die. I could die crossing the street on a core world, the human said simply. Risk is part of life. I just prefer to take calculated risks. Vexthor clicked his mandibles in thought. He looked at Pip. She shrugged her small shoulders. The decision was his to make. Tell me about your homeworld, Vexthor said. What was it like growing up on Earth? The human seemed surprised by the change in topic but answered. I grew up in a mountain region. Cold winters, hot summers. We had to learn to adapt to changing conditions, hunt for food, build shelter, survive with limited resources. Did you ever face predators? Yes, sir. Bears, mountain lions, venomous snakes. You learn to respect them, to understand their behavior, to avoid confrontation when possible, and defend yourself when necessary. And you enjoyed this life? Pip asked, her tone suggesting she could not imagine why anyone would. The human smiled. I did. There is something pure about survival. No politics, no complex social games, just you and the environment. Adapt or die. It teaches you what really matters. Vexthor understood. He had met beings from harsh worlds before. They often shared this mindset, a clarity that came from facing real danger. Bhatti 180 is not Earth, Vexthor warned. It is worse in almost every measurable way. I know, sir. The human's expression was serious again. But the principles are the same. Understand the environment. Respect the dangers. Stay alert. Keep moving. Trust your training. He paused. And maybe be a little bit lucky. Luck is not a strategy, Pip muttered. No, the human agreed. But it helps. Vexthor made his decision. Against all logical advice, against every instinct that told him this was madness, he made his choice. I will approve your application, Vexthor said, but with conditions. You will carry emergency beacons at all times. You will check in every 3 days with a status report. If you miss even one check-in, we will assume the worst and send a rescue team. Understood? Understood, Commander. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, Vexthor said. If you survive this, you can thank me. If you do not, he let the sentence hang. The human stood and offered his hand, a human gesture of agreement. Vexthor extended one of his own limbs and grasped the human's hand. The grip was firm but controlled, strong but not crushing. When do I leave? The human asked. 1 week, Vexthor replied. We need to prepare your equipment and arrange transport. Use that time to finalize your preparations. The human nodded and left the room. When he was gone, Pip turned to Vexthor with wide eyes. Commander, are you certain about this? Vexthor was not certain at all, but he said, We have tried everything else. Perhaps it is time to try the human way. The human way, Pip repeated. You mean the crazy way? Vexthor's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Perhaps that is exactly what Bhatti 180 requires. The week passed quickly. The human spent his time in the equipment bay, selecting and testing gear. Word spread through the station about the approved mission. Scouts from various species came to watch the human prepare. Most thought he was insane. Some said it openly. A Quellan engineer approached the human on the 3rd day. Her skin was a skeptical shade of purple. You are really going to Bhatti 180? The human looked up from the pack he was assembling. Yes. My cousin was on the 3rd team, she said quietly. He did not come back. I read the report, the human replied. I am sorry for your loss. The engineer's skin shifted to a darker purple. Then you know what is waiting for you there? Why go? The human was silent for a moment. He continued packing, checking each item carefully. Finally, he said, Because the job needs to be done, and because I think I can do it. Arrogance, the engineer muttered. Maybe, the human agreed, but I prefer to think of it as confidence earned through preparation. He showed her his pack. Every item had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. The shelter was lightweight but strong. The water filtration system was compact. The food was high-calorie, designed to sustain heavy activity. He carried medical supplies, navigation equipment, and sample collection tools. Everything had been tested under triple gravity conditions. You carry no heavy weapons, the engineer observed. Just a plasma pistol and a knife. Heavy weapons slow you down, the human explained, and they attract attention. Loud noises, bright flashes, every predator in the area would investigate. Better to move quietly. What if you are attacked? The human touched the knife at his belt. This has served humans for thousands of years. It is reliable, silent, and it never runs out of power. The engineer shook her head. You are either very brave or very stupid. The line between the two is often thin, the human said with a slight smile. On the fifth day, Commander Vexthor called the human to his office. Pip was there as well, along with several other senior scouts. A holographic display showed Bhatti 180 rotating slowly. The planet looked hostile even from space. Thick clouds swirled across the surface. Lightning flashed constantly in the upper atmosphere. "We have updated the survey requirements," Vexthor said. "Based on your tactical approach, we have adjusted the mission parameters." A Quellan senior scout stepped forward. His skin was a professional gray. "We want you to focus on three primary objectives. First, identify viable landing zones for future mining operations. Second, document the major predator species and their territories. Third, locate water sources and test them for contamination." The human nodded. "Understood. And the secondary objectives?" "Mineral surveys if possible," the scout continued. "Botanical samples from different climate zones. Weather pattern data," he paused. "But these are optional. Your primary goal is to stay alive and complete the main objectives." "I appreciate the honesty," the human said. Vexthor activated a different display. "We have planned your drop point carefully. It is on the equatorial continent. Temperature is most stable there. The terrain is varied: hills, forests, open plains. You will find examples of most biomes within a reasonable travel distance." "What about the cave systems?" the human asked. "I want to avoid them." "Marked," Pip said, highlighting several areas on the map. "We have also marked the locations where previous teams encountered problems. River valleys here, highland plateau here, cave entrance here." The human studied the map carefully. He made notes on his personal data pad, asked questions about terrain features, elevation changes, seasonal weather patterns. He spent an hour reviewing every detail until he was satisfied. "I will aim to cover approximately 5 to 7 kilometers per day," the human said, "moving in a spiral pattern from the drop point. This will give me comprehensive coverage of the main survey zone while allowing me to return to extracted pickup point within a day's march if needed." "Conservative," the Quellan scout observed. "Realistic," the human corrected. "Triple gravity affects everything: movement, fatigue, reaction time. Better to plan conservatively and exceed expectations than plan aggressively and fail." Vexthor found himself impressed again by the human's methodology. Every decision was calculated, nothing left to chance. "The transport ship leaves tomorrow at 0800 station time," Vexthor said. "You will have a 4-day journey to Bhatti 180. The captain will drop you at 0600 local time. Weather forecast shows clear conditions for the next 12 hours. After that," he gestured at the swirling clouds. "After that, I adapt," the human finished. The meeting concluded. The scouts filed out, most still shaking their heads in disbelief. Only Pip remained behind with Vexthor. "Commander, I have been thinking," she said nervously. "What if he actually succeeds?" "Then we will have our survey data," Vexthor replied, "and the council can proceed with mining operations." "No, sir. I mean, what does it say about us? 3 of our teams failed, multiple casualties. If a single human succeeds where we failed—" She trailed off. Vexthor understood her concern. Humans were new to galactic society. Many species still viewed them as primitive, reckless. If this human succeeded on Bhatti 180, it would force the galactic community to reevaluate their opinion of humanity. "Perhaps that is not a bad thing," Vexthor said thoughtfully. "We have grown comfortable, safe. We send teams with the best equipment, the best training. But we have forgotten what it means to truly survive. Maybe the humans remember." Pip fluffed her feathers uncertainly. "Or maybe he will die in the first week, and we will be responsible." "That is also possible," Vexthor admitted. "But I have looked into his eyes, Pip. He is not going to Bhatti 180 to die. He is going to survive, and I think he might actually do it." That evening, the human sat alone in the station's observation deck. Through the massive windows, stars stretched in all directions. Somewhere out there, Bhatti 180 waited. Other scouts entered the observation deck, saw him, and quietly left. The human had developed a reputation. The mad scout. The dead man walking. No one wanted to associate with him. It might bring bad luck. Only one being approached. A young Quellan, barely past training age. Her skin was a curious yellow-green. "Excuse me," she said shyly. "You are the human going to Bhatti 180? "I am," he replied. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." She hesitated, then asked, "Are you not afraid?" The human considered the question. "Fear is useful," he said finally. "It keeps you alert, cautious. The trick is not to eliminate fear, but to control it. Use it as a tool rather than let it control you." "But how do you control it?" "Training, preparation, and understanding that fear is just your body trying to keep you safe. Listen to it, but do not obey it blindly." The young Quellan's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. "I want to be a scout like you someday, not afraid of anything." The human smiled. "I am afraid of many things. The difference is that I do not let fear stop me from doing what needs to be done." The young scout thanked him and left. The human returned to watching the stars. Tomorrow he would board the transport. In 5 days he would set foot on Bhatti 180. He had trained for this, prepared for this, but he was not foolish enough to think preparation guaranteed success. Bhatti 180 had killed experienced scouts before. It would try to kill him too. The difference was that he did not plan to let it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small stone. Smooth, gray, unremarkable. He had carried it since childhood. A piece of earth, a reminder of home. He would carry it through Bhatti 180, and he would carry it back again. The human closed his fist around the stone and made a silent promise. To himself, to the scouts who had died before, to everyone who doubted him. He would survive. He would complete the survey, and he would prove that sometimes the crazy plan was the right plan. The transport ship was called the Swift Current. It was a medium-sized vessel designed for rapid deployment of personnel to survey sites. The crew was professional but distant. They had heard about the human's mission. No one wanted to form a connection with someone who might be dead in a week. The human understood. He spent most of the 4-day journey in his assigned quarters, running through checklists, reviewing the mission data, exercising under increased gravity to maintain his adaptation. The captain was a tall, thin being from a species the human had not encountered before. She had 6 arms and eyes that could move independently. On the 3rd day, she summoned him to the bridge. "We will reach Bhatti 180 in 18 hours, she said without preamble. "I want to be clear about the drop procedure. We will not land. The atmosphere is too unstable. We will hover at 50 meters while you rope down. You will have exactly 3 minutes to detach and move clear. Then we leave." "Understood, Captain." "Once we leave orbit, we will not return for 60 days. Your emergency beacon has a range of approximately 2,000 kilometers. If you activate it, we can reach you within 6 hours, but only if we are in range. For the first 30 days, we will patrol nearby systems. After that," she gestured vaguely, "response time will increase significantly." "I will not need rescue," the human said simply. The captain's eyes focused on him with an intensity that was unsettling. Many beings have said that before visiting Bhatti 180. None of them were correct. "I will be the first," the human replied. The captain made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cough. "Human confidence. I have heard about it. I hope it is justified." The next 18 hours crawled by. The human forced himself to rest, eat, hydrate. His body needed to be at peak condition for the drop. He checked his equipment one final time. Everything was secured. Everything was ready. When the alarm sounded for approach, he was already dressed and packed. He made his way to the deployment bay. The crew avoided eye contact. Only the captain met him there. "The weather window is holding," she reported. "Clear skies at the landing zone. Temperature is 24 degrees standard. Gravity is 2.9 standard. Wind speed is 15 kilometers per hour from the east. The human nodded and moved to the deployment cable. The bay doors began to open. Air rushed out as the pressure equalized. Through the opening, he could see Bhatti 180 below. It was more beautiful than he expected. Green forests stretched across rolling hills. A river snaked through a valley. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks touching the clouds. From up here, it looked peaceful, inviting even. The human knew better. Beauty often hid danger. 30 seconds, the captain announced. The ship shuddered as it entered hover mode. The deployment cable dropped through the bay doors, disappearing into the sky below. The human attached his harness and checked the connection twice. 10 seconds. He gripped the cable, took a deep breath, exhaled slowly. Go! The human stepped off the platform and began his descent. The cable sang as he slid down it, friction brakes controlling his speed. The wind hit him immediately, stronger than expected. It pushed him sideways, making the cable swing. He adjusted his grip and kept descending. The ground rushed up to meet him. At 10 meters, he could see details. Thick grass, scattered rocks, something moving in the tree line. Something large. At 5 meters, he triggered his final brake. His descent slowed dramatically. His boots hit the ground with more force than he anticipated. The triple gravity was immediately noticeable. His pack felt 3 times heavier. His body felt compressed. Breathing took more effort. But he had trained for this. His legs took the impact and kept him upright. He released the harness and moved away from the cable, pulling his pack with him. Above, the transport ship was already retracting the cable. The human looked up one last time, saw the captain watching from the bay doors. She raised one of her 6 arms in what might have been a salute or a farewell. Then the doors closed and the ship accelerated away. Within seconds, it was a small point in the sky. Within a minute, it was gone. He was alone. The human stood still for a moment, letting his senses adjust. The air was thick, humid. It tasted of vegetation and earth. The smell was intense, rich, almost overwhelming after days in the sterile ship environment. Sound came next. Birds, or something like birds. Their calls echoed through the forest. Insects hummed in the grass. Something roared in the distance, deep and powerful, a reminder that this world had teeth. He checked his equipment. Everything had survived the drop intact. His navigation system was online. His emergency beacon was ready, but inactive. His plasma pistol was secured at his hip. His knife was in its sheath. Time to move. The human consulted his navigation system and oriented himself. The forest to the west was his first survey target. According to the scans, it contained a diverse ecosystem. Good place to start documenting flora and fauna. But first, he needed to establish a basic understanding of the immediate area. He spent the next hour exploring within a 500-meter radius of the drop point. The terrain was hilly but manageable. The grass was tough, almost like wire. It would be difficult to walk through quietly. The trees at the forest edge were massive, 10 meters thick at the base. Their bark looked like armor plates. He found tracks, large ones, 3-toed. Each toe ended in what must have been a claw. The impressions were deep. Whatever made them was heavy. He took measurements and photos, added notes to his log. Animal droppings near a stream. Analysis showed a diet of plant matter and meat. An omnivore then, or evidence of multiple species. He collected a sample and sealed it in a container. A bird burst from the undergrowth near him. The human's hand went to his pistol automatically, but he did not draw. The bird was large, maybe a meter tall. It had 4 wings and a beak that looked like it could pierce metal. It stared at him with intelligent eyes, decided he was not food, and flew away. The human logged the encounter. Everything he saw, everything he heard, every piece of data was valuable. By midday, he had completed his initial survey of the drop zone. Time to move into the forest. He approached carefully. At the tree line, he stopped and listened. The forest was loud with life, but nothing sounded like a threat, not yet anyway. He entered the shadows beneath the massive trees. The temperature dropped immediately. The humidity increased. Sweat began to soak his uniform. The triple gravity made every step an effort, but his training held. His muscles had adapted. He could do this. The human moved through the forest like water, smooth, quiet, always watching, always listening. He avoided obvious paths where predators might hunt, stayed away from clearings where he would be exposed, kept to the dense undergrowth where he could hide if needed. Hours passed. He documented 12 different plant species, found evidence of at least 6 different animals, saw something large moving through the trees in the distance, but never got a clear look at it. When the light began to fade, he started looking for a place to spend the night. Not on the ground where nocturnal predators hunted, not in the trees where he might fall if he slept. He found a cluster of large rocks, climbed up and found a shelf protected on 3 sides. Good visibility, defensible, uncomfortable, but safe. He set up his minimal camp. No fire. Fire attracted attention. He ate cold rations and drank filtered water. As darkness fell, he activated his night vision and watched the forest come alive. Things moved in the darkness, big things. Their eyes reflected his night vision with green or red glows. He counted at least a dozen distinct creatures within viewing range. None approached his rock shelter. Good. The human allowed himself to relax slightly. Day 1 was complete. He was alive. He had data. Tomorrow he would push deeper into the forest, cover more ground, complete more of the survey. But tonight, he would rest, sleep in shifts, stay alert, because Bhatti 180 did not care about his training or his preparation. It would test him constantly, and the moment he let his guard down would be the moment it tried to kill him. In the darkness, something howled, long and mournful. Other voices answered from different directions. The human recognized it, a pack behavior, coordinated hunters. He checked his knife, made sure it was loose in its sheath. Then he settled back against the rock and watched the forest. Let them come, he thought. I am ready. The howling continued through the night, sometimes close, sometimes distant. The human dozed in shifts, never fully asleep. Every sound brought him to full alertness. Every movement in the darkness was analyzed and categorized. Nothing approached his rock shelter directly. The creatures below seemed content to hunt other prey. He heard screams in the dark, short and sharp. Something dying. Then silence. Then the howling would start again. Dawn came slowly. The dual suns rose at different times. First, the red giant, casting everything in crimson light. Then, an hour later, the white dwarf, adding harsh brightness. The combined light created strange colors, purples and oranges that hurt the eyes. The human packed his minimal camp efficiently, checked his equipment, ate a quick breakfast of nutrition bars and water. His body ached from sleeping on rock. The triple gravity made everything harder. His joints protested. His muscles were sore. But pain was temporary. Data was forever. He descended from his shelter and continued deeper into the forest. The morning was relatively quiet. Most nocturnal hunters had retreated to dens. Diurnal creatures were just beginning to stir. He found a stream and followed it upstream. Water was life. Where there was water, there would be animals. Where there were animals, there would be predators. He needed to document the ecosystem at every level. The stream led to a small waterfall, maybe 4 meters high. The water collected in a pool at the base. The human approached carefully and froze. Something was drinking at the pool. It was massive, easily 4 meters tall at the shoulder, 6 legs, each leg thick as a tree trunk. Its head was broad with a mouthful of flat grinding teeth. An herbivore then, but size alone made it dangerous. Those legs could crush him without the creature even noticing. The human stayed downwind and motionless. He recorded video and took measurements using his scanner. The creature drank for several minutes, then lifted its head and looked directly at him. They stared at each other. The human kept his breathing steady, made no aggressive movements. After a long moment, the creature snorted and walked away. The ground shook with each step. The human let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. He approached the pool and collected water samples. The analysis showed trace minerals, but nothing toxic. The water was drinkable with minimal filtration. He marked the location on his map, a reliable water source. That was important data. By midday, he had covered 3 kilometers. Not fast, but steady progress. He documented everything: plant life, animal tracks, soil composition, weather patterns. The temperature had risen to 32 degrees. The humidity made it feel much hotter. His water consumption was higher than planned. He would need to find water sources more frequently. The forest began to thin. Ahead, he could see open ground, grasslands. He approached the edge carefully. Open ground was dangerous. No cover, nowhere to hide. But it was also necessary. Different terrain meant different species, different data. He studied the grasslands from the forest edge. The grass grew to waist height. It swayed in the wind like a golden sea. He could see shapes moving through it, animals grazing, herds of something. Where there were herds, there were predators. The human waited and watched. Patience was survival. After an hour, he saw what he was looking for. A disturbance in the grass, something moving fast, low to the ground, hunting. The grazing animals noticed too. They ran. The grass exploded with motion as dozens of creatures fled. But the predator was faster. It brought down a straggler in seconds. The human could not see details through the grass, but he heard the kill, quick and efficient. He recorded the event, added notes about predator behavior. Pack tactics or solo hunter, ambush or pursuit, every detail mattered. As he watched, more predators emerged from the grass. They converged on the kill, 5 of them, working together, definitely pack hunters. They fed quickly, always alert. One stood watch while the others ate. Then they rotated, smart, organized. The human decided not to cross the grassland, not yet. Too exposed, too many unknowns. He moved parallel to the forest edge instead, following the border between 2 ecosystems. This was a transition zone, often the most diverse and dangerous areas. He found another water source, a spring bubbling up from rocks. He collected samples, marked the location, refilled his water containers. The day was wearing on. He needed to find shelter before dark. A sound made him freeze. Low, rumbling, close. He turned slowly and saw it, emerging from the forest behind him. It walked on 4 legs but could clearly rear up on 2. Its body was covered in dark scales. Its head was reptilian with eyes that tracked movement with predatory focus. Its mouth opened slightly, showing rows of teeth designed for tearing meat. The human and the predator stared at each other. He calculated distances. His knife was at his belt, his pistol on his hip, but drawing either would trigger an attack response. Movement meant prey, so he did not move. He stood still, made himself bigger by slowly spreading his arms. Not aggressive, but not prey-like either. Confident, in control. The predator tilted its head, considering. This was not normal prey behavior. Normal prey ran, or fought. This creature just stood there. The predator's instincts warred with curiosity. The human began to speak, low and calm. Easy there. I am not food. I am not worth the effort. You go your way, I go mine. No problem. The predator did not understand the words, but tone mattered. The calm voice, the steady stance. It suggested this was not easy prey, not worth the risk. The predator made a decision. It turned and walked back into the forest, slowly, deliberately, not retreating, just disengaging. The human remained still until it was gone. Then he let himself breathe normally again. Close. Too close. He logged the encounter, added predator behavior notes, then he moved in the opposite direction, quickly but not running. Running triggered chase instincts. He found shelter as the suns began to set. Another rock formation, this one with a narrow cave. He checked inside carefully. No recent animal signs, no smell of nesting. Empty. He set up inside the cave entrance where he could see out but was protected. As darkness fell, he sent his first check-in. A simple data burst. Location, status, survey progress. The transmission took seconds. Somewhere in orbit, a relay satellite received the signal and stored it for the next ship that passed through the system. The human ate dinner. More cold rations. His body craved hot food, but that was impossible. No fire, no heat signatures. Be invisible, be forgotten. Night brought new sounds, different predators, different prey. The nocturnal world was active. Through his night vision, he watched creatures move past his cave. Most ignored him. A few stopped and sniffed the air, but none entered. He allowed himself to feel a small amount of satisfaction. 3 days down, 57 to go. He was alive. He had data. The survey was progressing. But he also knew this was the easy part. He was still close to the drop zone, still in relatively known territory. Tomorrow he would push further, into areas no one had mapped, into regions where the previous teams had failed and died. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight he was safe, dry, alert. That was enough. The human watched the darkness and thought about home, about Earth, about the mountains where he had learned to survive. Those mountains had taught him well. They had prepared him for this, for Bhatti 180. He touched the small stone in his pocket, his piece of earth, his reminder of where he came from, what he was capable of. Day 3 complete, he whispered to himself. 57 more to go. I can do this. And he believed it, despite the dangers, despite the odds, despite the fact that every scout who came before him had failed. He believed he would succeed, because failure was not an option, because people were depending on him, because he had made a promise to himself. He would survive. He would complete the survey. He would go home. In the darkness outside his cave, something large moved past. Its footsteps shook the ground. Its breathing was deep and powerful. It paused near the cave entrance. The human's hand went to his knife, ready but not scared. The creature sniffed. Once, twice. Then it moved on. The footsteps faded. Silence returned. The human allowed himself a small smile. Good choice, he whispered. I am not worth the trouble. He settled back against the cave wall and continued his watch. The night was long. Bhatti 180 was unforgiving, but he was still here, still breathing, still fighting. And that was all that mattered. The second week brought new challenges. The weather changed. The temperature dropped 15 degrees overnight. Rain fell like needles, driven by wind that bent the massive trees. The human's shelter became crucial. He learned to read the sky, the way the clouds moved, the color of the light before a storm. He adapted his schedule, travel during calm periods, shelter during storms, rest when possible, push hard when conditions allowed. His check-ins continued every 3 days, simple reports, progress markers, no emergencies. Commander Vexthor received each one with relief. Pip kept a chart tracking the human's position. Other scouts began to pay attention. The human had survived longer than any previous team. On day 11, the human reached the highlands. The terrain changed dramatically, rocky, steep. Vegetation was sparse. The wind was constant and cold. This was where the second team had failed. He could see why. Exposed, nowhere to hide from weather or predators. But the highlands offered something valuable. Visibility. He could see for kilometers in every direction. He spotted herds of animals in the valleys below, predator territories marked by kills and territorial markers, water sources, travel routes. The highland perspective gave him strategic information. He also found something unexpected: ruins, not natural formations, structures, walls, foundations. Something had built here, long ago. The stones were weathered smooth, plants grew through cracks, but the design was clear. Someone or something had lived on Bhatti 180 before. The human documented everything, took measurements, collected samples of the building materials. This was not in any of the previous reports. Either the other teams had not reached this area or they had not recognized what they were seeing. He sent a special report, flagged as urgent: potential evidence of previous civilization. The galactic community would be very interested in this. Bhatti 180 might be more than just a resource world. That night, he sheltered in one of the ruins. The walls provided protection from wind. The roof had collapsed long ago, but the structure still stood. As he settled in, he wondered about the builders. What were they? Why did they leave? Or did they die here? He found no answers, just more questions. The next day brought the first real test of his combat skills. He was descending from the highlands, moving through a rocky canyon, when he heard it: a hiss, long and menacing. He froze and looked up. Hanging from the canyon wall was a creature unlike anything he had seen. Long, serpentine, maybe 10 meters from head to tail, scales that shifted color to match the rock, eyes that locked onto him with clear intelligence. The human assessed the situation quickly. The canyon was narrow, steep walls, limited escape routes. The creature had the high ground and natural camouflage. Bad position, very bad. The creature struck, fast, impossibly fast. The human dove sideways, felt the rush of air as the creature's mouth snapped shut where he had been standing. He rolled, came up with his knife drawn. The creature coiled, preparing for another strike. The human did not wait. He ran, not away, toward. The creature was not expecting that. Its strike was designed for fleeing prey, not charging prey. It hesitated. 1 second. That was all he needed. He slid under the creature's body as it struck high, came up on the other side, slashed with his knife as he passed. The blade bit deep into scales. The creature screamed, a sound like metal tearing. It thrashed, confused, injured, angry. The human kept running, put distance between himself and the wounded predator, did not stop until he was out of the canyon. Only then did he allow himself to breathe hard, to feel the adrenaline shaking his hands, to acknowledge how close that had been. He checked himself. No injuries. His pack was intact. His knife was notched but still functional. He cleaned the blade carefully and resheathed it. Then he logged the encounter. Serpentine predator, ambush hunter, uses camouflage, extremely fast strike speed, vulnerable to counterattack if aggression surprises it. Avoid narrow canyons in this region. By day 15, he had covered over 70 kilometers. His body had fully adapted to the triple gravity. It no longer felt oppressive, just normal. His muscles had strengthened. His endurance had increased. He was becoming part of this world, learning its rhythms, its dangers, its patterns. He discovered that certain plants indicated water nearby, that specific bird calls warned of approaching predators, that the small six-legged creatures that looked harmless were actually quite aggressive if their nests were disturbed. Every day brought new knowledge, new data. The Galactic Station received his check-ins with growing amazement. Commander Vexthor called a meeting with the senior scouts. "He has been on Bhatti 180 for 15 days, Vexthor announced, longer than any previous mission. His survey data is comprehensive, detailed, professional, and he has made a significant discovery with the ruins." The Quellan senior scout studied the data. His movement pattern is efficient. He avoids the mistakes the previous teams made. never stays in one location long enough to become a target, keeps to defensible positions, respects the predators but does not fear them. It is the human approach, Pip said quietly. Adapt, survive, keep moving forward. Another scout spoke up. What is his current status? Vexthor pulled up the latest report. He is approaching the western mountains, unexplored territory. The scans show heavy predator activity in that region. Large creatures, territorial. He will need to be very careful. Should we warn him? Pip asked. He knows the risks, Vexthor replied. He has access to the same scan data we do. He will make his own decisions. On day 17, the human reached the western mountains. The terrain was brutal. Cliffs, narrow paths, loose rock, and everywhere signs of massive predators. Claw marks on stone, bones scattered near cave entrances, the smell of musk and decay. He moved carefully, every step calculated. He was deep in dangerous territory now. No room for mistakes. One wrong move and he would fall, or be eaten, or both. He found a cave system, large entrance, multiple tunnels leading deeper. This was where the third team had died. He recognized the location from the reports, could still see scoring on the rock from their plasma weapons, could imagine their last desperate stand. The human did not enter. He documented the entrance from a safe distance, took readings with his scanners. Something massive lived in those caves, something territorial and aggressive. He had no intention of disturbing it. Instead, he marked the location as extremely dangerous, added detailed warnings to his report. Future mining operations would need to deal with whatever lived in those caves, but that was someone else's problem. He skirted the cave system and continued into the mountains. The altitude was increasing, the air was thinner, his breathing became labored. The dual suns beat down during the day. The temperature plummeted at night. Ice formed on exposed rock. He found a valley between peaks that offered some protection. A small stream ran through it, fed by glacial melt. The water was crystal clear, pure. He refilled his containers and made camp early. As the sun set, he looked back the way he had come. He could see for hundreds of kilometers. The forest, the grasslands, the highlands. All the terrain he had crossed, all the dangers he had survived. He was past the halfway point of his mission. 30 days down, 30 to go. The survey was progressing well. He had documented dozens of species, mapped hundreds of square kilometers, found water sources, identified viable landing zones, discovered ruins. The mission was a success by any measure, but it was not over. 30 more days, 30 more chances to make a fatal mistake. Bhatti 180 had not killed him yet, but it would keep trying. The human ate his dinner and watched the stars emerge. Somewhere up there, the galactic community was watching, waiting, wondering if he would make it, betting against him probably. Humans were new, unproven. Why should he succeed where others failed? He smiled to himself. Because he was human. Because his species had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Because survival was in his DNA, in his culture, in his very bones. Bhatti 180 was dangerous, but Earth had been dangerous too, and humans had thrived. He would thrive here too, or die trying, but he did not plan to die. The human closed his eyes and rested. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, new opportunities to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. And he would meet those challenges the way his species always had, with courage, with intelligence, with stubborn refusal to quit. In the darkness, something howled at the moons. The human opened one eye, listened, categorized the sound. Not a threat, just another creature of Bhatti 180. Another piece of data for his report. He closed his eye and slept, dreaming of Earth, of home, of the day he would return and tell everyone that he had walked on a death world and lived to talk about it. That day was coming. He could feel it. Day 23 brought the worst storm yet. The humans saw it coming from kilometers away, black clouds rolling over the mountains like a living thing. Lightning spiderwebbed across the sky. The wind picked up until it screamed through the valleys. He found shelter in a rock overhang, deep enough to protect him from the rain, high enough to avoid flash flooding. He secured his position and waited. The storm hit with terrifying force. Rain fell so hard it hurt. Hail the size of his fist hammered the landscape. The wind howled like a wounded animal. Lightning struck constantly, so bright and close that he could feel the electricity in the air. The storm lasted for 6 hours. The human huddled in his shelter and watched nature's fury. This was Bhatti 180 showing its true power. This was why it was a Class 12 death world. Not just the predators, not just the gravity, but the planet itself trying to kill anything that dared walk its surface. When the storm finally passed, the landscape had changed. Trees were down, rocks had shifted, new streams cut through what had been solid ground hours before. The air smelled of ozone and wet earth. The human emerged cautiously, checked his equipment. Everything had survived. He was wet and cold but alive. He documented the storm damage, the erosion patterns, the way the planet reshaped itself. All valuable data for future operations. He also noticed something else. The storm had revealed things. Rock layers that had been hidden, cave entrances that had been covered, and bones, huge bones, weathered but intact. He approached carefully. The bones were massive, ribs as tall as he was, a skull the size of a small vehicle. This creature had been enormous, far larger than anything he had encountered. Extinct, perhaps, or rare enough that he had simply not seen one. He took measurements, photos, collected samples for analysis. This discovery alone justified the mission. Evidence of megafauna on Bhatti 180. The scientific community would be fascinated. As he worked, he felt eyes on him. That primal instinct that said he was being watched. He turned slowly and saw them. A pack of predators. The same species that had howled his first night on the planet. 6 of them, spread out in a semicircle, blocking his path down the mountain. They were large. Each one massed probably 80 kilograms, all muscle and teeth and predatory intelligence. Their eyes tracked him with disturbing focus. They had been waiting, patient, letting the storm drive him into the open. The human assessed the situation. 6 against 1, bad odds. His plasma pistol could take down maybe 2 before they reached him. His knife was useless against those numbers. Running was not an option. They were faster, and the terrain was against him. So he did the only thing he could. He made himself a threat. He drew his pistol slowly, aimed at the pack leader, the largest male, but he did not fire. Instead, he spoke, low and firm. "You do not want to do this. I will hurt you, maybe kill some of you. Is it worth it?" The predators did not understand words, but they understood confidence, body language. The human stood tall, did not show fear. The pistol was aimed steady, ready. The pack leader growled, a deep, rumbling sound. Testing. The human fired, not at the leader, at the ground in front of it. The plasma bolt exploded into rock, sent shards flying, burned vegetation, made a statement. "I can hurt you. I will hurt you. Back off." The pack hesitated. This was not normal prey behavior. Normal prey ran or cowered. This creature stood and fought, showed weapons, showed will. The pack leader's instinct said this was dangerous, not worth the risk. But hunger said otherwise. And there were 6 of them, 1 of him. The leader made its decision. It signaled the pack with a short bark. They began to advance. Slow, coordinated, experienced hunters. The human backed toward the rock overhang, kept his pistol aimed. "Your funeral," he said quietly. The pack charged, all 6 at once, a coordinated rush designed to overwhelm prey through numbers and speed. The human fired twice. The first shot took the pack leader in the chest. It went down screaming. The second shot hit another predator in the shoulder. It stumbled, but kept coming. Then they were on him. The human dropped the pistol and drew his knife. There was no time for fear, no time for thought, only training, only survival instinct. The first predator lunged for his throat. He sidestepped, slashed with his knife, felt it connect. The predator yelped and fell. The second came low, trying for his legs. He kicked, connected with its jaw, heard something crack. It retreated. The third predator hit him from the side. Teeth clamped on his arm. The armor of his suit held, but the pressure was immense. He stabbed down. Once, twice, 3 times. The predator released and stumbled away, bleeding heavily. 2 more came together, coordinated, one high, one low. The human dropped flat, let them crash into each other above him. Rolled, came up swinging. His knife found flesh, found bone. The predators screamed and scattered. Silence, heavy breathing. The human stood among fallen predators. 3 dead, 2 injured and retreating. 1 watching from a distance, deciding if revenge was worth it. The human aimed his retrieved pistol at the last one. "Go," he said through clenched teeth. "Live to hunt another day." The predator looked at its fallen pack, looked at the human, made its choice. It turned and limped after the other survivors. The human waited until they were gone. Then he let himself collapse against the rock. His arm hurt where teeth had clamped down. His body ached from exertion, but he was alive. Against 6 predators, he had survived. He checked his wounds. The suit had protected him from serious injury, bruises, some minor cuts, nothing critical. His arm would be sore for days, but he could still use it. He looked at the dead predators, felt no satisfaction, no pride, just tired acceptance. They had been hungry. He had been in their territory. It was nature. No malice, no evil, just survival on both sides. But he had won, and that was what mattered. He collected samples from the predators, tissue, blood, teeth, for genetic analysis. Then he moved away from the kill site. Other predators would come for the easy meat. He did not want to be here when they arrived. By evening, he found a new shelter, a small cave, defensible. He cleaned his wounds, treated them with medical supplies, changed his damaged suit section, checked all his equipment, everything still functional. He sent his check-in, added a note about the predator encounter, included injury assessment, minor wounds, full combat capability maintained, survey continuing as planned. On the Galactic Station, Commander Vexthor read the report with wide eyes. He fought 6 pack predators and survived? Pip's feathers were fully fluffed. According to his biometric data, his heart rate barely exceeded combat training levels. He was scared, but controlled, and he killed 3 of them with just a knife. The Quellan senior scout studied the report. Humans are more dangerous than we realized. If this is what one human can do on Bhatti 180, what could a team accomplish? Or an army, another scout muttered. Vexthor said nothing, but he thought about it. Humans had been peaceful since joining galactic society, friendly even, but this report showed what they could be if threatened, if pushed. Efficient killers, natural predators themselves. It was a sobering thought. On Bhatti 180, the human ate dinner and rested. His body would heal, the bruises would fade, the fear would be processed and filed away. By tomorrow, he would be ready to continue. 37 more days, more than half done. The finish line was visible now. Not close, but there, waiting. He touched the stone from Earth, his good luck charm, his reminder of home. Still here, he whispered to it, still breathing, still fighting. The stone did not answer, but in his mind, he heard the mountains of Earth, the wind through pine trees, the call of eagles, the silence of snow. Home was waiting. He just had to survive long enough to reach it. And survive he would, because that was what humans did. They survived, against predators, against storms, against impossible odds. They survived, and they documented everything for the next person, so that others could learn, could adapt, could survive too. That was the human way, and the human was proud of it. He closed his eyes and slept, dreaming of victory, of completing the mission, of going home with data that would help others, that would prove humans deserve their place among the stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight he rested, healed, prepared, because the mission was not over. Not yet. Bhatti 180 still had 37 days to kill him, and he had 37 days to prove it could not. The battle continued. By day 30, the human had become something different. Not quite human anymore. Not quite part of Bhatti 180. Something in between. His movements were smooth and efficient. His senses were sharper. He could smell rain coming hours before it arrived, could hear predators from hundreds of meters away, could read the land like a book. The triple gravity was no longer a burden. It was normal. His muscles had adapted completely. His bones had strengthened. His cardiovascular system had adjusted. He was stronger now than when he had arrived. Faster, more resilient. The Galactic Station had stopped being surprised by his reports. They expected excellence now, expected survival. The human had become a legend. The scout who walked a death world alone and lived. Other humans had noticed too. Word spread through human colonies. One of their own was doing the impossible. Pride swelled through human communities. See what we can do, they said. See what we are capable of. But the human knew nothing of this. He was focused on the mission, on the next kilometer, the next data point, the next challenge. He had circled back toward the drop zone, following a spiral pattern that ensured comprehensive coverage. He had documented over 100 species, mapped thousands of square kilometers, found multiple water sources, identified viable landing zones, collected mineral samples. His survey was thorough and professional. But he had also found something else, something that worried him. Signs of organized intelligence. Not the ruins, something new. Fresh tracks, too regular to be animal. Tool marks on trees. Caches of food buried and marked. Something on Bhatti 180 was smart, and still here. The human moved cautiously. If there was intelligent life on this planet, first contact needed to be handled carefully. The Galactic Council had strict protocols. Do not interfere. Do not threaten. Observe only. On day 33, he saw them, from a distance, through his scanner. They were bipedal, maybe 1.5 meters tall, covered in fur or feathers, hard to tell from this range. They moved in a group, 7 individuals, carrying spears, hunting. The human watched them track and kill a large herbivore. Their tactics were sophisticated. Teamwork, communication through sounds and gestures. They worked together to bring down prey 10 times their size. Then they butchered it efficiently, taking meat, leaving nothing wasted. Primitive, but not savage. Organized, intelligent. The human recorded everything. This was huge. Bhatti 180 was not just a resource world, it was a protected world. Intelligent native species had rights under Galactic Council law. Mining operations would be severely limited or canceled entirely. He flagged the report as critical, sent it with priority coding. Then he withdrew, made sure the natives did not see him. First contact would come later, through proper diplomatic channels. His job was just to document and report. On the Galactic Station, Commander Vexthor nearly fell out of his chair. Intelligent natives? On Bhatti 180? Pip was frantically checking databases. No previous mention in any reports, but the other teams never made it this far into the interior. They must have missed them. The Quellan senior scout was already contacting the council. This changes everything. The mining operations will have to be suspended pending proper evaluation. We need a full diplomatic team, anthropologists, linguists, contact specialists. Vexthor looked at the human's report again. The video was clear. The natives were definitely intelligent. Tool users, social organization, language, all the markers were there. He has given us more than just a survey, Vexthor said quietly. He has given us first contact with a new species. The human continued his mission. He gave the native territories a wide berth, did not interfere, but he documented everything from a distance. Population estimates, settlement locations, technology level, social behavior. By day 40, he had identified 3 separate groups of natives. They seemed to be different tribes or clans, each with their own territory. There was some interaction between groups, trade perhaps, or alliance. The dynamics were complex and fascinating. The human wished he could stay longer, learn more, but his supplies were running low. His equipment was wearing out. His body, despite its adaptations, was tired. 60 days on a death world took a toll, even on a human. He began the long trek back to the extraction point, retracing his path, collecting final samples, documenting any changes. The planet was entering a new season. The weather was shifting, temperature dropping. Some species were migrating, others were preparing for what might be hibernation. On day 45, he encountered the serpentine predator again, or one like it. This time in open ground, no canyon, no ambush advantage. They stared at each other. The predator remembered. The human could see it in the way it moved. Cautious, wary. This prey had heard it before. Was not easy meat. The human kept his hand near his weapon but did not draw. "We have done this dance before," he said calmly. "Neither of us won. Let us just walk away." The predator seemed to consider, then it turned and slithered into the tall grass. Gone. The human allowed himself a small smile. Even the predators were learning. He was not prey. He was something else, something that belonged here, at least for a little while longer. The days blurred together. Each one was a battle, against exhaustion, against monotony, against the constant pressure of being alert every second. But he pushed through, one day at a time, 1 kilometer at a time. His check-ins became shorter, just confirmation that he was alive, still moving, still on schedule. The Galactic Station did not need details anymore. They just needed to know he was okay. On day 50, he reached familiar territory, the forest where he had started. It looked different now, not because it had changed, but because he had changed. He saw details he had missed the first time, understood patterns he had not recognized. The planet had taught him, shaped him. He visited the rock shelter from his first night, found claw marks where predators had tried to reach him. He had not noticed them before, had been too inexperienced, too focused on just surviving. Now he could read those marks, understand what species made them, when, why they had given up. It was like reading a story written in the stone. He camped there one more night, full circle, where he started, where he would end. Or at least where this phase would end. He still had 10 days, still had to reach the extraction point, still had to survive until pickup. But the hard part was over. The survey was complete. The mission was a success. He had done what 3 teams before him could not. Survived Bhatti 180, documented everything, made first contact with intelligent natives, changed the entire purpose of this world from resource extraction to protected status. One human, 60 days, changed everything. He sent his final major report, comprehensive, detailed, everything he had learned, all the data, all the discoveries. It would take the council weeks to review it all, but it was there, permanent, valuable. As he sat in the shelter, watching the familiar forest, the human felt something unexpected. Sadness. He was leaving soon, going back to climate-controlled stations, artificial gravity, safety, civilization. Part of him would miss this, the simplicity of survival, the clarity of purpose, the feeling of being truly alive. Every decision mattered. Every moment counted. There was purity in that. But another part of him missed home, missed Earth, missed other humans, missed hot food and soft beds, and not sleeping with one eye open, missed peace. The duality was strange, but understandable. Bhatti 180 had tested him, shaped him, made him stronger, but it was not home, could never be home. It was a place to survive, not a place to live. He would leave, return to the station, file his reports, answer questions, probably become famous, the human who walked a death world. But he would remember, always remember, the lessons Bhatti 180 taught him, about survival, about adaptation, about pushing past limits. These lessons would stay with him forever. The forest was quiet that night, peaceful, as if the planet was giving him one last gift, one final night of rest before the journey home. The humans slept deeply, dreamed of both worlds, Earth and Bhatti 180, civilization and wilderness, past and future. When dawn came, he woke refreshed, ready. The final push was ahead. 10 more days, then pickup, then home. He packed his gear one more time, checked his equipment, stood at the edge of the forest, and looked out at the land he had crossed. Thousands of kilometers, dozens of ecosystems, hundreds of species, 3 intelligent native groups, all documented, all survived, all conquered. Thank you, he whispered to the planet, to Bhatti 180, to the death world that had tried to kill him and failed. You made me stronger. Then he turned and began walking toward the extraction point, toward home, toward the future. Behind him, the forest watched silently. The predators had learned. The planet had tested. The human had passed. And Bhatti 180, in its own way, acknowledged that. Let him leave. Sent him home. With respect, with the understanding that passed between worthy opponents. The human had earned his passage, earned his place in the story of this world. And the planet, ancient and wild, accepted that. 10 days remained. The end was near. Victory was certain. The ground trembled under his steps, not from fear, but from the weight of his achievement, the substance of his presence, the mark he had made. Every alien scout had doubted Bhatti 180, until now, until the ground trembled under his steps, until the human proved them wrong. The journey continued. The story was almost complete. Almost. Day 55 dawned clear and bright. The human was 5 days from extraction, 5 days from leaving Bhatti 180 forever. The journey back to the extraction point had been smooth, almost too smooth. The planet seemed calm, quiet, like it was holding its breath. The human did not trust it. He had learned not to trust calm on a death world. Calm meant something was coming, something big. He was right. The tremor started small, a vibration in the ground, barely noticeable. The human stopped walking and knelt, pressed his hand to the earth, felt it, regular, rhythmic, growing stronger. Something was moving, something massive. He climbed the nearest high point, a rocky outcrop that gave him visibility, scanned the horizon, and saw it, in the distance, coming his way. A herd, but not like the herbivores he had documented before. These were the creatures from the bones, the megafauna he thought might be extinct. Alive, moving, 30 or 40 of them, each one 10 meters tall, walking on 4 legs like pillars. Their heads carried massive horns. Their feet shook the earth with each step. The human watched in awe. They were magnificent, terrifying but beautiful, ancient survivors in a brutal world. And they were migrating directly through his path to extraction. He checked his map. The extraction point was on the other side of that herd. He had 3 options. Wait for them to pass, could take days. Detour around them, could add a week to his journey. Or go through, risk everything with 5 days left. The human made his decision. He would go through, carefully, respectfully, but he would not wait, not when he was this close to completion. He descended from the outcrop and began moving parallel to the herd, staying downwind, keeping distance, watching their behavior. They moved slowly but steadily, a migration pattern, probably seasonal. They were heading toward the lowlands where food would be more abundant. The human waited until he found a gap in their formation, a space between family groups. He moved toward it, slowly, no sudden movements, making himself small, non-threatening. As he entered the gap, the nearest megafauna noticed him, a massive female with a young one beside her. She stopped, turned to look at him. Her eyes were surprisingly intelligent, curious, alert. The human froze, stood still, let her examine him. She took a step closer, lowered her head, sniffed in his direction. The ground shook with her movement. Her horn was longer than he was tall. One swing could kill him instantly. "Easy," the human whispered. "I am just passing through. No threat to you or your baby." The female considered. Her baby made a sound, high-pitched, curious. The mother responded with a deep rumble. Then she turned away, uninterested. The human was too small to be a threat, not worth the effort. The human let out a breath and continued walking, through the gap, between giants. The herd moved around him like water around a stone. They barely noticed him. He was beneath their concern, just another small creature on their world. It took hours to cross through the herd. By the time he reached the other side, the suns were setting. The herd continued on, their footsteps fading into the distance, the trembling ground slowly becoming still. The human made camp and sent his check-in, included notes about the megafauna, living specimens, migration patterns, behavior. The scientific community would be thrilled. 4 days left. He was exhausted. The constant alertness was wearing him down. Even his adapted body had limits. He needed rest, real rest. But Bhatti 180 did not care about his needs. It would test him until the very end. That night, the dreams came, vivid, intense. He dreamed of Earth, of walking through mountains without fear, of forests where everything did not want to eat him, of safety, comfort, home. He woke before dawn, checked his equipment. Everything was wearing out. His suit was patched in a dozen places. His boots were nearly worn through. His pack had rips and tears. Even his knife was notched and scarred. Everything showed the wear of 60 days on a death world. But everything still worked. That was what mattered. Function over form. Survival over appearance. He ate breakfast and began walking. The extraction point was 3 days away. 70 kilometers, easy distance. Except nothing was easy on Bhatti 180. Day 56 brought rain. Not the violent storms of before, just steady, heavy rain. It soaked everything, made the ground slippery, reduced visibility. The human kept moving, one step at a time, focused on the goal. He saw fewer predators now, as if the planet was letting him go, giving him safe passage for the final stretch. Or maybe he had just learned to avoid them so well that they never saw him. Either way, he was grateful. On day 57, he reached familiar landmarks, the grasslands near the drop zone, the forest edge, places he had surveyed in his first week. They looked different now, or he saw them differently, understood them better. The whole planet made sense in a way it had not before. Commander Vexthor was preparing for extraction. The transport ship was already in orbit, waiting, ready to descend at exactly day 60. The crew was nervous. They had heard the stories, the human who survived, the legendary scout. They wondered what he would look like, what the experience had changed in him. "He is 3 days from extraction," Vexthor announced to the command center. "Barring disaster, he will make it. He will actually complete the full 60-day survey." The scouts in the command center stood and applauded. Spontaneous, genuine. They had watched his progress for 2 months, lived vicariously through his reports, feared for him, hoped for him. And now, victory was in sight. Pip's feathers were bright with excitement. "Commander, he has changed everything. His discovery of the intelligent natives, his comprehensive data, his survival. Humans will be respected now, truly respected." Vexthor nodded. "And that is as it should be. We underestimated them, underestimated him. We will not make that mistake again." On Bhatti 180, the human camped 2 days from extraction. He was so close now, 48 hours, less than 2 days. Then the transport would descend. He would climb aboard, leave this world behind. He felt conflicted, relief, sadness, pride, exhaustion, all mixed together. He had completed the mission, but at what cost? He had killed to survive, been injured, pushed himself beyond normal limits, changed in ways he was still discovering. Was he still the same person who had arrived 60 days ago? Or had Bhatti 180 transformed him into something new, someone new? He did not have answers, only questions. And the knowledge that he had survived, completed the mission, proved what humans could do. That night he took out the stone from Earth, held it in his hand. It was the only thing that had not changed, still smooth, still gray, still a piece of home. He had carried it through everything, every danger, every challenge, and now it would go home with him. "2 more days," he whispered to the stone. "2 more days and we go home, together." The stone did not answer, but somehow the human felt understood, comforted, connected to something beyond this alien world, connected to Earth, to humanity, to home. He slept holding the stone, dreamed of the extraction, of the transport ship descending, of climbing aboard and seeing other faces, hearing other voices, being part of civilization again. When dawn broke on day 58, he woke with purpose. 1 more day of travel, then rest at the extraction point, then pickup. The finish line was visible now, clear, achievable. He packed quickly, moved with renewed energy. The exhaustion was still there, but determination overrode it. So close, so very close. The terrain was easy, familiar. He covered 20 kilometers by midday, took a short break, then pushed on. By evening he could see the extraction point, a flat area, clear of trees, perfect for a ship to land. He made camp at the edge of the clearing. Tomorrow he would move to the center, set up his beacon, wait for the transport. But tonight he would rest here. One final night on Bhatti 180. As darkness fell, the planet seemed to say goodbye in its own way. The usual sounds were softer. The predators seemed distant. The night was calm, peaceful even, as if Bhatti 180 acknowledged his victory, respected his achievement. The humans sat and watched the stars. Somewhere up there, people were waiting, watching, hoping. Tomorrow they would be relieved. Tomorrow he would be safe. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight he was still here, still on Bhatti 180, still surviving. One last night as the scout who walked a death world. He touched the ground, felt the solid earth, the triple gravity that no longer bothered him. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for the lessons, for the challenges, for not killing me." The planet did not respond, but the human felt something, a connection, an understanding. He had walked this world, learned its secrets, earned its respect, and now it was letting him leave, giving him passage home. He closed his eyes and rested. Tomorrow would be day 59. 1 day from extraction, 1 day from victory, 1 day from proving that humans belonged among the stars, that they could survive anywhere, do anything, overcome everything. Tomorrow. But tonight he slept, dreaming of home, of Earth, of victory, of the ground trembling under his steps as he walked into legend. The end was near, so very near. Just 1 more day, 1 more sunrise, 1 more challenge, then he would be done. Then he would be free. Then he would go home. One more day. Day 59 arrived with golden light. The red sun rose first, painting everything crimson. Then the white sun followed, adding brightness and warmth. The dual suns of Bhatti 180 greeted the human one final time. He woke feeling different, lighter somehow. Not physically, the gravity was still 3 times standard, but mentally, emotionally, the weight of the mission was lifting. One more day, just one more day. He ate breakfast slowly, savored it. Even the bland nutrition bars tasted good this morning. Everything felt significant, final. Last moments on an alien world that had tried to kill him for 60 days and failed. He packed his gear carefully, checked every item. Some would be discarded. His suit was too damaged to salvage. His boots were destroyed. But the data, the samples, the recordings, these were precious. These were what mattered. At mid-morning, he walked to the center of the extraction clearing, set up his emergency beacon, and activated it. The signal pulsed out into space. A simple message. I am here. I am ready. Come get me. Then he waited. The transport ship was already in orbit, captain and crew ready. They had watched the beacon activate on their screens. Confirmation. The human was at the extraction point, alive, successful, legendary. Begin descent, the captain ordered. Let us bring him home. The ship dropped through the atmosphere, smooth and controlled. The crew was tense, excited. They would be the ones to extract the legendary scout, to witness history, to see the human who had survived. On the ground, the human heard the ship before he saw it, the roar of engines cutting through atmosphere. He looked up and saw it, a silver shape descending through clouds, growing larger, closer, real. His chest tightened. Emotions he had suppressed for 60 days suddenly surfacing. Relief, joy, disbelief. He was actually leaving, actually going home. It was over. He had won. The ship landed with a gentle thud. The engines powered down, the deployment ramp extended, and figures appeared. The captain, first mate, medical officer, all staring at him. The human walked toward them, each step deliberate, measured. The ground trembled under his feet, not from the triple gravity, but from the weight of his accomplishment, the substance of his presence, the mark he had made on this world. He reached the ramp and stopped, looked back one final time, at the forest, the mountains, the grasslands, all the terrain he had crossed, all the challenges he had faced, all the lessons he had learned. Goodbye, Bhatti 180, he said quietly. Thank you for everything. Then he turned and walked up the ramp, into the ship, into safety, into civilization, into legend. The captain met him at the top, extended one of her 6 arms. Welcome aboard, Scout. Well done. Very well done. The human shook her hand, nodded, could not speak. The emotions were too strong. He had made it. He was safe. It was over. The ramp closed. The ship lifted off. Through the viewport, the human watched Bhatti 180 shrink below him. The clearing, the forest, the continent, the planet, growing smaller and smaller until it was just another world among countless others. But it would never be just another world to him. It would always be special. The place that tested him, changed him, made him stronger. The place he had walked alone for 60 days and survived. The medical officer examined him, checked vitals, scanned for injuries. Her expression grew more surprised with each reading. Your bone density has increased 15%, she reported. Muscle mass is up 20%. Cardiovascular efficiency is exceptional. You are healthier now than when you arrived. The human smiled. Bhatti 180 was the best training I ever had. The crew prepared a cabin for him, with a real bed, hot water, climate control. Everything felt strange after 60 days of survival. Too comfortable, too easy. He had to remind himself that this was normal. Bhatti 180 had been the exception. As the ship accelerated toward the galactic station, word spread. The human was extracted. Alive. Successful. The mission was complete. Reactions ranged from celebration to disbelief. Humans cheered. Other species reconsidered their opinions. The galactic community took notice. Commander Vexthor received the confirmation and sagged in relief. Pip danced around the command center. The senior scouts applauded. They had witnessed something remarkable, something that would be taught in training for generations. The journey to the station took 4 days. The humans spent them resting, eating real food, showering, sleeping in a bed, talking with the crew, slowly readjusting to civilization. He also reviewed his data, compiled his final report, organized everything for presentation to the Galactic Council. The discovery of intelligent natives was huge. It would change everything about Bhatti 180. Mining operations would be canceled. The planet would be protected. A diplomatic team would be sent. One human, one survey, changed the fate of an entire world. When the station appeared on the view screen, the human felt a surge of emotion. He had left from there 64 days ago. Unknown, untested, just another scout volunteering for a dangerous mission. He was returning as something else, a proven survivor, a discoverer of new intelligent life, a legend. The transport docked. The human gathered his gear, took a deep breath, then walked down the corridor toward the docking bay, toward whatever waited for him next. Commander Vexthor was there, with Pip, with senior scouts, with a crowd of beings who wanted to see the human who had done the impossible. They stood in silence as he approached, staring, evaluating, witnessing. The human stopped in front of Vexthor, set down his pack, stood at attention. Survey mission complete, Commander. Requesting permission to submit my final report. Vexthor's mandibles clicked. Something that might have been a smile. Permission granted. And welcome home, Scout. You have exceeded every expectation. The human relaxed slightly. Thank you, sir. It was an honor to represent humanity on this mission. You did more than represent, Vexthor replied. You proved. You showed what your species is capable of. The Galactic Council will want to hear everything. But first, rest. Recover. You have earned it. The crowd parted as the human walked through. Beings from a dozen species nodded respect. Some reached out to touch him, as if his success was contagious, as if they could absorb his strength through contact. The young Quellan scout from the observation deck approached nervously. Her skin was bright yellow with excitement. You did it! You actually did it! You walked Bhatti 180 and lived! The human nodded. I did, and so can anyone else who prepares properly, respects the dangers, never gives up. Will you teach us? She asked. Will you train other scouts in the human way? The human considered. If asked, yes. Survival knowledge should be shared, so others can learn, can survive, can succeed. Over the following weeks, the human became famous throughout the galactic community. His report was studied by every species. His methods were analyzed and adopted. Survival training was revolutionized, and humans gained respect they had never had before. The Galactic Council sent a diplomatic team to Bhatti 180. First contact with the natives went well. They were peaceful, curious, willing to communicate. A new species joined galactic society, thanks to one human's discovery. Mining operations were canceled. Bhatti 180 was redesignated, from Resource World to Protected World. The natives would develop at their own pace, protected by council law. The humans' survey had saved them from exploitation. He received awards, commendations, offers from various organizations, but he declined most of them. He had not done it for fame. He had done it because it needed to be done, because someone had to walk Bhatti 180, because he believed he could succeed, and he had. Commander Vexthor called him to his office one final time. "What will you do now?" the commander asked. "Your name is known throughout the galaxy. You can write your own ticket, any assignment, any position." The human was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I want to go home, to Earth, to the mountains where I learned to survive. I need to reconnect with that. Remember who I was before Bhatti 180. And after that? After that, maybe I will train others, teach what I learned, help prepare the next generation of scouts so they can survive their own death worlds." Vexthor nodded. "That would be valuable. You have knowledge worth sharing." The human stood to leave, paused. "Commander, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Did you think I would survive? Be honest." Vexthor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Honestly? No. I thought you were brave but foolish. I approved your mission because we had no other options. I expected to authorize a rescue mission or a body recovery. But I proved you wrong. You did, and I am grateful for that. You taught me something important. Never underestimate humans. You may look fragile, you may be new to galactic society, but you are survivors, true survivors. Bhatti 180 learned that. I learned that. The galaxy learned that." The human smiled. "Good. That is all I wanted. Respect for my species. Acknowledgement that we belong here, among the stars. You have that now, and more." The human left the office, walked through the station one last time. Tomorrow he would board a transport to Earth, to home, to recovery. But tonight he visited the observation deck, where he had sat alone before the mission, where everyone had avoided him. He sat in the same spot, looked out at the stars, and remembered Bhatti 180, the forests, the mountains, the predators, the challenges, the victories, all of it. It felt like a dream now, distant, unreal. But the scars on his equipment were real. The data in his files was real. The memories in his mind were real. He had walked a death world and lived. The stone from Earth was still in his pocket. He pulled it out, looked at it. This small piece of home had traveled with him through everything, through danger, through fear, through triumph, and now it was going back to Earth. Mission complete. "We did it," he whispered to the stone. "We actually did it." Footsteps approached. The young Quellan scout, others behind her, a dozen beings, all scouts, all wanting to hear stories, learn lessons, connect with the legend. The human welcomed them, sat with them, shared his knowledge, answered questions, taught what he had learned. Because that was the human way. Share knowledge, help others, build community, survive together. As he talked, he realized something. Bhatti 180 had not just tested him, it had prepared him for this, for leadership, for teaching, for showing others what was possible. He had walked a death world, survived 60 days of constant danger, discovered intelligent life, changed the fate of a planet, proved what humans could do. And now he would help others do the same, in their own way, on their own worlds, with their own challenges. Because that was the purpose, not just survival, but growth, learning, evolution, becoming more than you were before. Bhatti 180 had made him more, and he would use that to help others become more too. The ground had trembled under his steps, not from fear, but from the weight of achievement, from the substance of human determination, from the mark one person could make when they refused to quit. Every alien scout had doubted Bhatti 180 until the ground trembled under his steps, until a human showed them what true survival looked like, until one person changed everything. The story was complete, the mission was over, but the legend would continue, told and retold, inspiring others, showing what was possible, proving that with preparation, determination, and courage, Any world could be walked. Any challenge could be met. Any goal could be achieved. The humans smiled, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy, united by respect, by curiosity, by the desire to survive and thrive. This was his legacy. Not just the data, not just the discovery, but the inspiration, the proof, the example. One human, one death world, one impossible mission, completed, and the galaxy would never forget.